There we go. Are these things on? It's been a while since I've done this. Let me know if you can hear me. Should we try the intro? Last time it didn't work. There was some, actually maybe I'll check on YouTube if it's working. Ads. Jesus. Audio static. Okay. It's working. Yeah, I didn't put the lights on. That's why it's a bit dark. It doesn't matter. I have to work on my car soon, so I need to turn one light on. Let's see if we if the intro works. Where was that? Let's try it. Now it seemed to work. No idea why it didn't work last time. Okay, let's get some people on here. There's hardly anyone here. Need to share this. Where's Captain Club Race when you need him? Okay, looks like we got some questions. Write some questions in the comments. Let's see. Okay, we've got chat up and running here. Tomorrow I'm actually going to the track. I need to break in an engine for Pekko. He's going to be running the Mayako now, and in 1 week we have the first national. So I won't be racing, but I'll be pitting for Pekko instead. So he's in the army now. He can't break in his engine. I have to do it. What did I write that we were going to cover today? Q&A was one, right? Questions. And there was something else. Can't remember anymore. It's like a few hours ago already, so I forgot. Invisible speed update, Mayako update, link height as an adjustment. Let's start with some questions, and I need to work on my car here. Since there's not many people here, I'm not gonna put 100% focus on this, right? If we get over 100 people, then I'll pay attention. I need to prepare this engine here. Okay, so let's see. Steve had a question. Why does more kick up in the front of a car help with bump handling, yet more anti-squat hurt it? Both of them are angling the arms upwards. Or am I not correct with one of my assessments? Okay, well, you are angling both arms, yes, but the direction that the forces are traveling are different. So on the front, when you angle the arm that way, it actually helps the suspension move. If you were to angle it the other way, that would be called anti-dive. That would be the equivalent of anti-squat in the rear. So if we take grab a car. So if we have a car here on the front, when you are adding kick up, so this direction, which is on the rear, anti-squat. On the front, it's kick up. you would have to angle the arm the opposite direction on the front for the same effect. So on the rear, anti-squat makes the suspension stiffer. On the front, anti-dive would make the suspension stiffer. So from horizontal, you would angle it that way. Angling it this same direction actually makes the suspension softer. So the way we run our cars, when we add kick up, it makes the suspension softer. That's why it is better in bumps. The suspension doesn't bind as much when you are hitting the brakes, for example, and also when you accelerate, it will lift up more. So the movement of the suspension moves more when you have more kick up on the front. And on the rear, when you have more anti-squat, then the suspension is stiffer. So when you initially accelerate, the rear doesn't squat as much. It pushes the tires harder into the ground. That's why you have more initial grip accelerating. So I hope that answered your question. Next question. Why does it seem like Ronne Falk's race results have dropped this year? What changed in his program? This is actually interesting. Especially Americans seem to find it hard to spell his name. I don't know where this Falk comes from. It's just Falk. Anyway, so the things that have changed in his program are he changed his servos and tires. So last year he was running highest servos. Now he switched to high tech. No, I don't know if that made any difference to his performance, but they are different servos. I'm sure there's something different about them, something to get used to with that. Tires, that's a big one because last year he ran whatever tire was best. So when we went racing, he would have all kinds of different tires. He almost exclusively settled on hot race, but there was like the nationals in Sweden that was on a oiled multi-surface track where he ran Seismic because they were the best tire there. I can't think of another race where he would have run something else. Mostly he ended up on hot race. This year it's different because he signed with Matrix, and Matrix is a new tire brand. So they are only developing their tires now, and he has to run them. So that's definitely a big change in his program. Now he can't go to a race and just run whatever's the best tire. He's working with Matrix and helping to make those the best tire. So yeah, that's what he changed. And other than that, I would say that this season we didn't go to America together to spend a month there, basically driving as much as possible. So he drove a lot less before the season started than last year. That's also one big difference. Now, for this season, the main goal is the two European championships, really, that 8-scale electric European championship, and then the main goal, the Nitro European championship in Redovan. So I would say, regardless of what happens throughout the year, if he wins the European championships in, I think it's September, end of August, early September in Redovan, then it's a successful year, right? So that's the goal. And about the 8-scale electric Euros, actually, that's a bit controversial because the track that they have the race on, it's barely open for practice. So because we weren't able to go to the warm-up, there's not really any suitable practice day to go there. The way they have the track open is just, it's almost feels like it's intentionally done so that no one can go there and practice, which is a bit of a shame. I think that EFRA should make sure that when they organize a race like the Euros, they have to make sure that the track is available for practice. And actually, I have to mention one other thing. you know, the whole controversy with the Kilic brothers and Coelho at the warm-up, the last main. Burak had already won the race, but he competed in the last main. And I think the situation was such that Berkan needed to win to finish on the podium or second or whatever it was, and Bruno couldn't win. So Burak let Berkan run away with the race, and he held up the other cars. So first of all, doing that, I think it's unsportsmanlike, but there's nothing against that in the rules. Also, for those of you who watch Formula One, do you remember when Perez held up Hamilton in Abu Dhabi a couple of years ago? Same thing. I mean, it's not sportsmanlike, but it's, if you don't take someone out, if you just sort of slow them down by racing them, that's okay. It's not nice, but it's racing. Okay. And the thing is that in that situation, Perez was Red Bull fans' hero and Mercedes fans' worst enemy at that point. Also, another thing, Coelho made this long post on Facebook about how horrible it was. It was the worst thing he's experienced in RC and all of that. Now, okay, I don't agree with what Burak did in that main, but really he just, drove in front of the guys chasing him, brake checking and stuff, so they would run into him. And then in the last corner, blocked Bruno, so Bruno couldn't finish. Two other drivers went by. I would argue that it's worse to be behind another driver and drive straight through them and ruin that other driver's race by doing that. That's my opinion. So there's some saying about stones and glass houses and stuff like that. Equally, I remember races where I remember European championships that have been awarded to X-Ray, to the Hoodie Arena, where they have done the same thing with practice, where they make it so you can practice on like a Tuesday evening and a Friday or Saturday or something like that. So if you want multiple days of practice, you would have to spend an entire week there and get on the track like 2 days or 2.5 days or something like that. Ridiculous, right? So yeah, while I don't agree with what, the actions of the Kilic brothers, the fact is that they didn't really do anything against the rules. They just did something that's unsportsmanlike. And for the club, I don't agree with the fact that they have a European championship and they don't make it available for people to go there to practice. Those things are wrong. But at the same time, the loudest critics do the same things, same kind of things. So, that's kind of my take on that. I'm not really in the mood for a rant today. You need to be in the right state of mind to rant. I do have a rant though. So my next rant, either on here or then possibly on the Non-MRC podcast, it's going to be about this new trend we have in RC. So you know how much I love these big races we have. Well, now there's a new trend that's surfaced, and it's all about series. Now these race organizers have come up with a new way of scamming people, right? The current way of promoting a race, then getting so many entries that you have to cut down on qualifying rounds or cut down on the amount of track time in other ways, that's not enough now. Now they've come up with the series concept. So we're going to have a rant about that, but not today. So wing, I think a super high wing is good. A lot of the time, it does help with stability. I would argue that it has a lot to do with the fact that it's just raising the weight up higher, because it also helps in low speed. And low speed, it can't really be the downforce that's doing that. So I would say it's because of the weight and the way that it helps to roll the car. Yes, I think most of the time a higher wing is more stable, and especially a high wing that's further towards the front. That will be the most sort of stable setting for the wing. This is a good question, and something we have spoken about in Invisible Speed. We had Thibaut and Ronne Falcon discussing landing jumps. And driving plays a huge role in this, actually. So Power for Days is saying that my car bottoms out on certain jumps, even after going with harder springs, smaller holes, and thicker oil. How much difference does driving do? What's the best way to approach a jump to minimize this? So if you just flat land a jump, it's not going to, the car isn't going to land very well. You have to pay attention to how you land also. So if the jump has a landing, of course, you would want to try to angle the car to the landing and land on the downslope of the jump. That's step number one. Then number two, you would like to land on power. If you land on power, then the spinning tires will help to drive the car forward as you land. As the tires hit the ground, there will be friction because they will grip the track surface. When there's friction throughout the drivetrain will actually help to resist bottoming out. So when you land on power, the car will drive forwards, and it will help to absorb the landing. So land on power. Angle the car correctly to the landing and land on power. That's going to help a lot. And then if you have a really, big jump, hard landing, or not a very good landing at all, not a sort of landing at the correct angle, the absolute best way to land would be on power, but just on one side of the car. So on two wheels, because then when you land, the car will land like that. So side first and then flat. Now what that does is, now you don't just have shocks absorbing the landing along with the friction in the drivetrain resisting bottoming out. Now you also have the roll resistance of the car. So the anti-roll bar and the geometry itself resisting the roll of the car, which also helps to absorb the landing. So angle the car correctly, land on power, and then also next level stuff, land just on one side on two wheels. And the roll resistance will also help to absorb the landing. When you do up the flywheel nut, you don't need to use Loctite. I'm unsure if Loctite will even work there since it gets so hot. But what you have to do is when you tighten, you have to make a face. Otherwise, it might come loose. So when you are almost done, then you just do like that. Then it's good. Pro tip. Randy has a question. Why do we not see 8-scale buggies with the rear shocks on the front side of the rear arm? 10-scale forward drive buggies are like this, and it seems to help with jump landing and corner speed. Well, the problem is that in nitro, the header pipe actually heats up the left rear shock if the shock is in front of the arm significantly. So that's an issue. For 8-scale electric, Serpent, Durango, at least those have had shocks in front of the arm. And on the Mayako, it's actually possible to do that too. Like there's a location for the roll bar to flip it around on the gearbox for that reason. So I know that Pekko told me, actually, since he's an avid 10-scale racer, he said he wants to build his 8-scale electric with the shocks in front of the rear arms. So I guess he will do it, and then we will see. Get some feedback for that. I think the reason is, yeah, because nitro, you can't really do it. No one's done it successfully. Then brands have just opted to have the nitro and electric buggies be the same. So that's why we don't see that. Should I use a larger Venturi to help with 16% or 12% EU tuning and power trouble? Damn EU regulations. Yes. So when I ran that lower nitro fuel, what I did was I removed one head shim. So I think it's 0.1 mil. One of the thinner shims, well, on this engine actually. So this is actually, yeah, it is the right one. MXS Ultimate engine. So I removed one head shim. I ran a big Venturi. I think I had an 8 mil Venturi. What I've noticed is that in Finnish summer, there shouldn't be a problem. But in really hot weather, like 30 degrees weather and above, it's difficult to get an old engine to run on that fuel. If you have a new engine, fine. If you have an engine that's a bit worn out and normally would be still fine, I've had issues with running that fuel. So that's a bit of a worry if it becomes a case where you can't run your engines for as long anymore with that fuel. I hope that's not the case. But yeah, big Venturi. Oh, wow, we got an actual super chat for the beer fund. Today it's Ale Koch. My camera is not cooperating. There we go. Premium Ale Koch from Estonia. I believe this is from Estonia. So I answered that question for free, and then I took advantage of the super chat afterwards. Nice. Is it only a weight distribution difference running the rear shock in front of the rear towers? I think it's also how the shock is loaded, because when the car is just static on the table like that, you have more weight over the rear shock. So I think it also has to do with that. I'm going to put a new clutch bell on this thing. Going crazy. New parts. Do any of the 1.8 RC companies do any wind tunnel testing? I have been playing around with different body shells on my buggy. I can't really tell a difference. The body shells on buggies, on 8-scale buggies, they make a sort of minor difference. It's not like touring cars or on-road where the body makes a massive difference. In 8-scale off-road, you can drive your car without the body and you'll see, right? Just take the body off and drive your car. You'll notice the difference, right? But you can still drive your car. You can't drive a touring car on the track without the body. Come on. It's not going to happen. So the bodies make a difference, but it's a minor difference. And unless you are in tune with your car, you aren't going to notice a difference. If when you drive for 5 minutes, or every lap is different, and you take different lines all the time, you're not going to notice a difference with your body. That's something we've also talked about in the Invisible Speed live meetings, about how to create a connection with your car, because that's really key to everything, to improving your driving, to adjusting your setup. You have to create a connection to the car. There's no physical connection with the car, but you need to almost create a physical connection with just, your hand-eye coordination. That's the only thing really happening. But you can look at the car, see how it's responding, and you can learn to feel that. To create this connection, you have to practice consistency first. You have to be able to do the same kind of lap over and over, and you have to consciously know what you are doing, the inputs you are making, how you are driving. When you have reached a certain level, obviously you don't think about your inputs, but when you are learning this, you need to think about it. So you need to consciously think about how you use the throttle and when and how much, and how you turn the wheel, at what point in the corner. You think about these things, and to do this, you slow down to do it. Drive around the racing line thinking about these things. And once you do this enough, you are teaching your muscle memory, basically, to drive the car around the track. So it will start happening automatically. When you can drive around the track consistently, consistent lap time, consistent lines, you can make small adjustments. You can drive through a corner faster, for example. And then you'll notice, now I reach the speed that I can't go through this corner without losing the rear end, for example. So then you have discovered the limit in that section. So maybe back off a bit again. Now you're going through it fine. Increase the speed. Now you have this issue again. So then you can practice your driving by figuring out how to get through that corner faster. Maybe it's just a simple case of, hey, actually, if I maintain a small amount of throttle through the corner, I can do the corner. The problem is I'm lifting off completely off the throttle mid-corner, and that's causing this, for example. Or you can adjust your car. You drive the exact same, but you make a change to the car. Maybe you go to a thinner rear anti-roll bar, or you lower the rear arm on the inside, and suddenly you notice, now my car handles that corner even at that higher speed. So by creating this connection to your car, by being able to do consistent laps, you can find the limit of your driving, of the car setup, and make changes that you then learn to understand what's happening. So my whole point with this is you have to be at that level to notice a difference with bodies. You can't just change body and be like, this is the difference now. Maybe the fact that you just took a break and drove again, you drove better. You don't know. You have to be in tune with your car. Then you can notice differences with bodies. It's kind of the same topic, so let's take it. For new drivers, what are the most important things to learn change on the car early on? Is there something you shouldn't touch in the beginning? For new drivers, you don't need to really touch anything. For new drivers, the most important thing is that you run the car with a sort of recommended base setup, and you just adjust tires for the track, shock oils for the temperature. So I know at least Mayako offers sort of a range of shock oils. So depending on the temperature, you pick the appropriate shock oils. Diff oils can also be something worth changing if you are running on some kind of extreme track. So extremely loose and bumpy, or extremely high grip. So on the extremely high grip track, you would go up on diff oils compared to the base setting. On a really loose, bumpy track, you would go down on diff oils. But generally, the base setting for diffs will be okay everywhere. The most important thing is what I just explained about driving. So slow down to the point where you can do consistent laps on the racing line. Work on that. Work on your 5-minute run and being able to be consistent for that 5 minutes. That's really the best thing you can do. And everything else follows from there. Once you can be consistent, it doesn't really matter how good or bad your car is, just driving consistently for 5 minutes. Then you can start working on stuff. You can start working on your driving. You can start working on your setup. But the first point really is to learn to drive around the track for 5 minutes consistently on the racing line. The antenna tubes that I have are JQ Racing, the green ones. But Mayako also has, actually we don't have it as a spare part, I think. The car comes with one, but I don't think we sell it as a spare part. I'm using the old JQ ones. That was about antenna tubes. What's the theory behind using less droop on bumpier tracks? So it depends kind of on what kind of bumps. When a track is so bumpy that you can't really drive around the bumps, it's just a minefield out there. You have to drive through bumps. If you run less droop, you can end up in a situation where the car sort of skips over bumps more than drives into them. I only really remember one scenario like this where this has been a significant help and it sort of really worked out well. It was actually, I think it was 2008. That's how long ago it was. It was in Portugal for national in Guarda, and that was before they glued the track or whatever they did to it now. So it got really, really rough. And I actually reduced my droop. I didn't have that much droop, and my car skipped over the bumps. So I mean, I had to drive through all the bumps, which I did, but it just, the less droop made it where the car wouldn't roll too much, and it sort of hopped and skipped over the big bumps instead of going into all of them, and I won the race. It was, but yeah, that's not something that is a sort of solid rule, like, oh yeah, that's for sure gonna work. It's a bit tricky. And it will also depend on your driving. But yes, that is a thing. Grip roll on AstroTurf. I can normally dial it out or not be as aggressive with my driving, but find going sometimes have to compromise low speed corners. What's the best way to compromise? Well, one thing definitely worth trying is the whole bell curve anti-roll bar thing. So you know what the bell curve is? It's a curve that starts like this, then it goes up, and then it goes back down. Okay? Like that. The point is that on loose tracks, you use a thin roll bar. Then as the grip goes up, you start using a thick anti-roll bar. But then as the grip goes really high, you start using a thinner roll bar again. So on AstroTurf, that super high grip, I would recommend trying going to sort of normal anti-roll bars if you're running super thick ones now. So just run something normal like 2.3 front, 2.6 rear, maybe. And then instead run really thick shock oil and maybe 516, 517 holes. What that's going to do is the shock oil being so thick and the damping feeling hard will limit roll initially. It's still going to roll, but it's going to be so slow in roll that it won't have time to roll in corners. And then the soft anti-roll bars aren't going to add so much initial grip and nervousness to the car. So your car should be a bit more calm. And if it starts rolling and you can sort of notice that, oh, it's rolling too much now, it's going to flip over, you can correct it. So when you have very thick anti-roll bars on, what happens is you're good until you're not, and the car flips quickly, and you might not have time to save that. So instead, go thin anti-roll bars, hard on the damping, and then that will give you time to react when things start going sideways. Do your guitar amps go to 11? Let's see. Well, unfortunately, only 10, but I have some pedals, so you can boost that. But on that thing, actually, if you can't even go to like 2 or 3. Blow the windows out, I think. You can buy the book on invisiblespeed.net. So they ship everywhere, including America. So what day is it today? It's Thursday. If you order today, you'll have it next week. How much does blipping the throttle affect the car from the clutch loading and unloading so rapidly? Well, I'm not a big proponent of blipping your throttle too much because you are unsettling the car. It pays to be smoother, I would say. So these days, unless you're like blipping like Ongaro, which are like micro blips, then yeah, I would focus more on trying to be smooth when you drive. There's only one Ongaro in the world. I don't think anyone else can drive the way he does. Anyway, I think that's it for questions right now. You can keep posting questions, but I want to show something to you. How do I manage that? Let me see. Let me see here. So in Visible Speed, we had 1 week of meetings already. Now we are doing homework, and we'll have 2nd week of meetings in June. So go over the homework that we've done and hand out the next batch of homework. The idea of the homework is simple. It's just everyone gets the same setup changes to perform. For example, testing certain different ride heights, different droop, camber, toe, etc. And then writing notes for yourselves. So try all the settings. What did you notice? And then pick a favorite setting. Everyone does that. There's a shareable Google document where everyone documents their findings, and then we go over that. And when you try it for yourself and you attend the meetings, listening to the discussion, then you will have a very good understanding of what the different setup changes do and when to apply them. That's the idea of the homework. That's what we're doing currently. Also, I want to show you here. I'm going to have to share my browser. Okay, you should be able to see the course now. There we go. Hopefully you see it. So there's a bunch of new stuff. If people haven't checked this for a while, then on-road is one thing. Alexander Hagberg has been making on-road videos here. So also finishing the editing of a full 8-scale buggy build by Ronnefalk. That's here. Here is a 12-scale on-road build by Hagberg and 10-scale touring car on-road build. And then also, the checks between the runs, good checks to do between runs, and the first setup changes and maintenance for on-road by Hagberg. Then what we'll be adding here shortly is in module 10, understanding your car, a deep dive into setup. All of these videos have been made for 8-scale nitro off-road. The theory behind everything is the same for all classes, but the actual sort of application of it differs. So what we'll do with Alexander is we will do a video together where we cover the relevant topics, and then we add a video specifically for on-road. So for example, after the whole first basic section here on roll centers, we'll talk about roll centers specifically for touring car on-road, how it affects the car. And we talk about that, so the preferred settings, how the car responds, and then looking at laps of a track, where on the track you notice these differences. So those are the kind of videos for on-road that we'll be adding here in module 10. So the different things like down travel and ride height, camber, toe, anti-roll bars, we'll add videos here specifically about on-road. And then there are a bunch of missing videos still. I'm not promising anything. When they're done, and they'll be uploaded here. One of the next videos that will be up here is this case study, because I found it. I'd already filmed it, so I will be adding that. Then here's a new section for homework where we have the Google document for the homework, and then the homework briefing video, Jared Thibault's thoughts on the homework, and the live meetings we also add them here in the relevant section. So up here in module 10, there was a live meeting on setup theory, for example. So good bits of live meetings and the entire live meetings will be added into the course material also. Yes, so that's what's going on with invisible speed at the moment. So over the next, well, I would say over the summer, there will be a lot of additional on-road videos and also additional live meetings and videos for 8-scale off-road. So that's what's going on in the invisible speed world. As for the book is actually incredibly almost sold out again in English. There are only 5 books left. 5 books. So there was some guy here who was saying he wanted to buy it. I recommend you do that now. There won't be more English language books for a while. The reason is that I'm writing a new one. The things that will be added to this new book, basically a better explanation of initial versus overall grip with examples. A lot of the downloadable documents will be improved upon and included in the book. There will all, what I mentioned about on-road, this will also be included in the book, where after the sort of main chapter, we specifically focus on on-road and maybe also 10-scale off-road as a separate subject. So after we've talked all about roll centers, for example, then you add a section for on-road regarding roll center. So that's the idea. And also there will be chapters that focus more on how to practice, how to drive, how to approach setting up your car. All of these things that we've talked a lot about in the invisible speed meetings, but they aren't written down anywhere. So I'll add that to the book. And also then we have more and better illustrations and presentation of the book. Another thing that I'll do is first sort of a glossary of terms, because when explaining things in text, it's easy to misunderstand or just have a slightly different view of it. If you, for example, talking about rotation, what is rotation? If I just write about rotation, maybe some people think that rotation is the whole driving into the corner, mid corner, and exit of corner, the entire thing. Or maybe some people think about rotation as when you get on power or something else, you know. But so we should all agree on what rotation actually means. And for that example, it's the sort of automatic steering that happens mid corner. So as a driver, you drive into a corner and then maybe you're doing nothing. You just turn the wheel, you're off power, you aren't doing anything. The car needs to rotate mid corner. And then once it's rotated a certain amount, you get on power again. So those kind of things have to have those terms figured out. And then also, when we talk about setup, very often it has to do with driving around corners. Everyone can go straight. Everyone can jump and land pretty much. Where we make up the time is in corners. So when we make a setup change, where in the corner does it really make the biggest difference? When we have a problem getting on power out of a corner, what setup change should we make there? Or when we have a problem entering a corner, what setup change should we make? Or when we are entering a corner, the moment we let off the throttle, what should we change if we have a problem there? So we need to be a bit more specific with the advice. So we'll have images of corners and the different sections of corners, and then each item, we link it to a part of the corner. So rotation, for example, is linked to the middle part of the corner. And then, okay, which setup options have an effect greatly on this part of the corner? You see what I mean? So those are the kind of things that will be included in the new book. Let's take a question here. Are there any track situations where heavy rear diff, for example, 10K or above, is actually advantageous? Is that how you say that word? Yes. So the higher grip the track is, the more open and flowing the track is, the smoother the track is, the higher you can go in the rear diff. A higher rear diff oil will make your car more stable and easy to drive off power. So as you enter the corner, you get off power, rear will grip more, car will push a bit, which on very high grip and high speed is good. Car will be stable. You lose a bit of rotation. So now you understand what I mean. Middle of the corner, the car won't want to rotate as much. Drive in the corner, it's stable. You wait for the car to rotate, doesn't rotate as much with a thick diff oil. Now, very high grip, high speed track, that's a good thing. Car stable going in, you let off, it doesn't do anything weird. It sort of keeps a nice round arc. Get on power, you have a lot more drive. So if there's not enough grip, the car would want to start fishtailing on power as you exit, because the rear tires are left and right are more locked together. They're driving more together. Rear would want to start fishtailing. If there's a lot of grip, it doesn't matter. Just get on power and the rear drives a lot harder. So you have more acceleration out of the corner. So I remember, for example, at Euros in Sweden, the track was very big and high speed. And it did actually get really bumpy, which sort of goes against this. But on this particular track, actually the corners weren't that bumpy. It was more sort of the straights and braking into corners that was bumpy. The corners themselves weren't that bumpy, at least the higher speed ones. That meant that you could go to a very thick rear diff and the car was stable at speed, stable going into corners, and then you had really good drive exiting corners. So I used 12,500 in the rear diff at that race, I remember. Okay. I've been looking for this one screw for like 25 minutes now. What else? Do we have something else? So we covered the invisible speed update. Now we know what's going on. New book coming. Only 5 English books left. Actually 300 German books. I don't know. Germans are cheap somehow. I don't read books. French books are sold out. English books are about to be sold out. Spanish books are about to be sold out. Italian books, we still have maybe 30. German books, 300. Achtung, Scheiße. We need to sell German books. Any advice for a novice going to first club race? There's a whole section on that in the Invisible Speed course. If you don't have the course, all I can say is have fun, enjoy yourself, make new friends, and focus on your own car driving around the track. Just do your own thing. That's it. Club racing is probably the most fun form of racing. I've had the best memories I've had from racing are probably from club racing. Actually, club racing touring car, because you can race so close. Maybe also America, like 10 scale off-road, SoCal, RC Raceway, and OCRC. Neither of those tracks exist anymore, but yeah, club racing there was just so much fun. Yeah. So have fun. Okay, Bauman reminding me. Mayako update. What the hell was the Mayako update? I can't even remember anymore. So Mayako, this year, kind of big year for Mayako. Ronne Falk remains. Then we also we signed Jared Tebow in America and hired Robert in Spain, or Bob Batche. Unfortunately, we've had some big delays with the e-buggy and nitro buggy alike, and that has meant that we're a bit behind right now. We're waiting for new cars. There are a few member cars available, a few service centers have cars, but we basically sold out. That's bad. That's really bad. So what we are looking to do now here in the next couple of weeks, as June starts, back in stock with everything. Made some good improvements. I'm not going to lie, we've had some issues here. Shock shaft coatings coming off, which everyone complains about. I mean, it's not ideal. Doesn't look great, but it doesn't change the way the shock works. We've all run it. European champions with shock coatings coming off. Shock shaft coatings coming off. Not perfect. Gotta work through that. We've had some hinge pin snapping. Well, working on that too. New batch. Not gonna break like that anymore. We've got captured hinge pins now for the arms, so they don't pull out anymore. All these issues that you've read about, heard about, seen, working on those. It's taking so long. I wish it had been done like 10 months ago, but that's life. Got new cars coming now. Let's pray to God that it's all good now. That's all we can do at this point. I've become religious in my older age. I'm praying that everything will be good. I can't believe it. I lost my pliers that I actually paid big bucks for and bought. I don't believe it. What else is new in the Mayako world? So there are a bunch of new parts coming that I can't talk about because there's members only. But some of the parts you'll see soon. One of those parts is a new C-hub that has an adjustable insert for link height. That's the last thing I want to talk about today. Link height, because it's a really good setup change that's kind of overlooked, I think. I don't think most people think about this the way I think about it, and that's why I want to talk about it. So you only 66 people watching here. You 66 people. I'm going to give you 68 people. Now you're going to learn something. We just find a C-hub. Okay, so first of all, rear hub. So these rear hubs we have are super adjustable. You can adjust the height with shims. Then there are also different holes there, and you can adjust the length with shims also. So mega adjustable, and you can adjust the offset here with insert, and the insert is matched in the arm then. Now the relevant point here is the height adjustment. So raising and lowering the link. What we haven't had on these C-hubs is the same ability to raise and lower the link. Well, that's going to change now because we will have an insert that goes here with 3 holes, and then you flip the insert and you have 3 lower holes. Why would I do that? We also have this insert here on the rear tower. So where is the tower? There it is. We can have a long link or short link by flipping this insert. C-hub will have the same, but it's going to be for height. So imagine it like that, low or high. A really good way to adjust the initial grip of your car. So not necessarily the balance of your car. You don't want, maybe your car feels good. The balance is good. The way it turns into corners, accelerates, everything's fine. You just need a bit more grip. The car feels a bit loose. Track's loose. Car needs more initial grip, more bite, more response. You need it to turn a bit more. You need it to straighten out and go straight when you get on power. You need the rear to really lock in. Maybe you even need a bit more steering. There's a way to do that that doesn't affect the overall balance of the car, and it has to do with the height of the link. So what you want to do is you want to take your entire link inside and out, keep the same angle, just lower it. You do that on the rear and on the front. So you lower the links inside and out, same amount, front and rear. Running lower links increases initial grip. So on the front, when you lower the link, the front end will bite more initially, turn the car into the corner. But then mid-corner, you lose a bit of grip. On the rear, what happens? Initially, you lower the links on the rear, you turn in the corner, the rear grips. But then as you get into the corner, mid-corner, you lose a bit of grip. So the rear would have less traction, allowing the car to rotate. As soon as you get back on power, the rear will grip again. Because remember, the rear has more initial grip. Get on power, it grips. So now you have a car where it turns really well into the corner. The front turns the car, the rear is gripping. So it turns in with traction. Mid-corner, it rotates. And when you get on power, you stop that rotation and the car grips and goes. So lowering the links inside and out, front and rear, is a good way to add some initial grip to the car and some response to the car. Now the same works in the other direction, where if you're on a track that's high grip or edgy, if you raise your links inside and out same amount, you will have less initial grip in the car. So when the car turns into the corner, it will do so smoother. Mid corner, it won't have a big change in traction. It turns in smooth, maintains a similar amount of grip mid corner. It doesn't want to catch bumps. And then you accelerate out of the corner and the car is smoother accelerating out also. So the height of the link, not changing the angle, but just raising or lowering, is a good way to adjust the amount of initial grip. And this also works in touring car. Since we're going to do more with on-road in invisible speed, might as well talk about touring car here. So on my automatics that I have, it's really easy to adjust link height here also. So outside has shims, inside has shims. I can raise and lower the entire link and maintain the same angle. And I can tell you that the effect is the same that I feel in 8-scale off-road. On the rear, it's the same thing. So I have shims inside and outside. And what I do is I keep the same angle that I like, just raise and lower it. And it's the same. On the front, if I lower the link, I have more aggressive steering, more responsive steering. But then mid-corner, it pushes a bit. And rear, if I lower that entire link, I'm confident going into corners, but mid-corner, I have less rear grip. And then as I get on power, I have more grip again. So I feel that with the lower link, the car is more aggressive. And if I can drive it correctly, I feel that there's more potential to go fast. But then as I start to raise the link inside and out, keep the same angle, just raising the entire link, front and rear, the car is more forgiving and it's easier to drive. I'm more consistent. So definitely something worth trying. By the way, just another tip for anyone running automatics. I put the links on the bulkheads. So normally the links should attach there. There you see those holes. That's where the links attach, long or short. I went even longer there to the bulkheads. A lot more stability, a lot easier to drive. A very good grandpa setup. Actually, I think very good setup for a lot of drivers. Ronnie Falk ran this at the ETS he went to, and can't remember. Did he qualify fourth or something like? He did quite well. I think he had issues in the mains, but yeah, it's something that in RC people just tend to follow the pros. Whatever the pros do, that's what they want to do. Someone like Bruno Coelho, he drives a car that I couldn't even drive, probably. It turns so much. It's so aggressive. Maybe we can talk with Alexander about that too. I don't think he likes to drive Bruno's setup either, but that's what everyone wants. I strongly disagree. I think if you make a car work for your skill level and your own preference, you will enjoy racing much more and you'll be faster. And this is one thing. This is one such thing. Raising the entire link, front and rear, will make your car easier to drive because you'll have less initial grip. It will catch everything less. It will be less responsive. That's a very good direction to go. And like I showed you here on the automatics, long links will slow everything down, calm everything down. Car will be a lot more forgiving, easier to drive. Less initial grip again. So also worth trying. Okay. So when you raise or lower the entire link and you keep the same angle, the effect it has on roll center is very minor. So, I mean, you could, if you, for example, draw the roll center drawing and you study it on the computer, you can raise and lower the link and keep the same roll center height and very similar movement, but not quite the same. That's where the difference comes in. So I would say that when you are thinking about just raising the entire link or lowering the entire link, you don't need to worry about raising or lowering the roll center. When you do that, you are thinking about initial grip versus overall grip. So how the forces are traveling through the car. So don't worry about roll center height when you're doing that. When you start angling the links, changing the angle, that's when you start thinking about raising or lowering the roll center. It's like the lower arm on the inside. If you change it just 0.5 mil, it doesn't really affect the roll center a lot, but it's a big change on the track. And it's a big change on the track because of the forces and how they travel through the lower arm, not really the roll center position. So there's two different things happening with roll centers. One is the roll center position and how it then migrates as the suspension moves. So how hard or soft the car is in roll. But the other thing is how the forces travel through the arms and links. And so those are two different things. And when forces travel more through the arms and links, load transfers quickly. That's what we call initial grip. The car is responsive. When the car is allowed to roll more and the force travels more into the shock, the damping and the spring, now the car is rolling more, delaying load transfer. And that's why we say that the car has more overall grip, less initial grip, because load is transferring slower. So the grip level stays similar or the same for longer. So any changes in traction happen slower. So less initial grip, more overall grip. These concepts, these things are what will be explained in more detail in the next book. How is life on 40 plus race retirement? Asking for a worried friend. I would say that nothing has changed really, except I'm definitely past halfway in my life now. So I can race the 40 plus euros. That's about the only good thing that I can think of. Other than that, I don't see any positives in turning 40. Would be cool if you could talk more about stadium truck off-road carpet. I could use the help. Well, I don't race trucks, never have. The same things apply though, right? The same concepts. So if you look at anything we talk about regarding racing on very high grip, those same things apply to trucks on carpet. But specifically trucks on carpet, yeah, no, I'm not going to be talking about that. Okay. It's already 8:15. We have a Mayako members meeting soon. Running late, as usual. Was that it? So we talked about links. I wanted to talk about the height of links. Hopefully some one of you is inspired to try that for yourself now. We did an invisible speed update. Talked about adding on-road videos. off-road videos, Mayako update, bunch of new parts coming for the members. We know about all the issues and complaints and problems. I've been working on solving them. More cars are on the way. What else? You had a bunch of questions that I answered. Got one super chat, so I can afford a beer for the next live. Thanks, Baumann, for that. I think we're kind of done here. Explain how you decide to use pistons with less holes or more. There's a video, I think it's free on YouTube, my pistons video from the course. So that one explains it quite well. But basically, fewer larger holes means that you can run thicker oils, have a firmer damping, which slows everything down, but you'll have the right amount of pack, so not too much pack. With fewer, I mean, with more smaller holes, it's the opposite. You can run a softer feeling suspension, so more reactive, more responsive, with the right amount of pack. So that's the difference. Fewer larger holes, you can make the car more stable, more calm and stable. More smaller holes, you make the car more responsive. That's one good way of thinking of it. I think for the Mayako buggy, 6-hole pistons will work everywhere. And then you can go to a 5-hole piston if you're on a track where you feel that you want to make the car more plush and easy and calm. Or you could go to a 7-hole piston on, for example, that IBC Barcelos track, which was high grip and technical, and you needed stability, but also response. 7-hole piston worked really well there. No, so there will be cars. There will be more cars this summer from Mayako, and then the next batch after that will be for 2024. So don't worry, you can still get a Mayako this year. Now we can have 2 beers, thanks Ron Chang. Beer fund. Cheers. Mayako Electric has been members only. It will be public sometime during this summer. Xtech says, I'm running with lower roll center on Astro, as JQ says, delay load transfer and let the car roll more than compared to other cars at the local track. And also check the jacking video where I talk about how the car either wants to lift up or roll down on the track. With low roll centers on high grip, you greatly reduce the chance of the track wanting to, car wanting to rise up and flip over. That's why we want to run low roll centers on high grip. Dana is asking, what's up, JQ? How are you doing? Well, I'm doing so good that I'm going to end this live right now. That's what I'm going to do. We're way over time. This should be like 30 minutes. Did 1 hour 20. At least I got the engine done. Ultimate MXS. New pipe, new clutch. Just need an air filter now. And we're good to go. Gonna go break this in tomorrow for Pekko. Then he'd better win the first Finnish national. Yeah, for Mayako buggies, there are 10 in USA and 5 in EU stores. Mayako.com and then EU store or USA store. And there are probably some at some service centers also. Okay. I guess that's it, right? Is that it? I think so. Anyway. Bye.